Welcome to Stillwater Chronicles. Tonight, we settle into a story about a child at the end of the aisle. There is a particular kind of silence that only exists in large shops late at night. It is not the silence of emptiness. The fluorescent lights still hum. The refrigeration units along the back wall still breathe out their cold, low drone. Somewhere deep in the building, a stock trolley wheels across linoleum, its metal frame rattling softly before going quiet again. And yet, the silence is there, underneath all of it. A structural silence. The kind that makes you aware of your own footsteps, your own breathing, your own smallness inside a space that was built to hold hundreds of people, and tonight holds almost none. Diane had always liked the late shop. She was aware this made her unusual. Most people avoided it. The fluorescent harshness, the depleted shelves, the faint institutional smell of a building that had been open too long. But Diane found something honest about it. The shop in the daytime was performance. Trolleys and children and the particular stress of choosing between nearly identical products while someone waited behind you. The shop at night was just a shop. Quiet. Functional. A place you move through without being watched. Or so she had always believed. She had come in at 10:30, basket over one arm, a short list in her head. Milk. Bread. Something easy for tomorrow's lunch. She had parked in the near-empty car park and walked across the wet tarmac. It had rained earlier, and the asphalt still held the light in small dark mirrors, and pushed through the automatic doors into the cool, bright interior. The greeter's booth was unmanned. The self-checkout screens glowed amber and idle. An employee in a green apron was restocking something near the entrance without looking up. Diane picked up her basket and went in. She took the long road, as she always did, past the bakery section, even though it was closed, because she liked the smell that lingered, even after the ovens went cold. Past the deli counter, covered now with white cloths. The glass case, empty and dark. Past the wine aisle with its bottles standing in their careful rows. Label out. Waiting. She reached the cereal aisle at the far end of the shop. It was a long aisle, one of the longest. The boxes stacked high on both sides, their colors muted in the overhead light. Reds that looked rust, yellows that looked pale. The floor was linoleum the color of old cream, scuffed faintly in the center, from years of trolleys and shoes, and the slow erosion of ordinary days. That was when she saw the child. A girl, she thought, 7 or 8 years old. Small enough that the shelves on either side rose well above her head, giving her the look of someone standing at the bottom of a very tall, very narrow world. She had a basket over one arm, a proper shop basket, red plastic, the kind adults carried. And she was standing in front of the cereal boxes with her head tilted slightly to one side, examining them, carefully, the way a person examines something when they are trying to make a genuine decision. Diane slowed. She looked to the left and to the right, expecting to see an adult nearby, a mother crouching to read a label further down, a father at the end of the aisle checking his phone, the particular distracted presence of a parent who had let their child wander the short distance between them. There was no one, just the girl, and the cereal boxes, and the hum of the lights. Diane watched for a moment. The girl reached up and took a box from the shelf, turned it over, read the back with a focused, unhurried attention, then set it into her basket with the quiet certainty of someone who had been doing this a very long time. She picked up a second box, read it, considered, placed it back. Diane found herself walking forward, slowly, without urgency, the way you approach a situation that might be nothing and might be something, and you have not yet decided which. The girl heard her coming, or perhaps she felt it. She turned, not with the startled flinch of a child caught alone somewhere they shouldn't be, but slowly, with a kind of measured ease. She looked at Diane the way adults look at other adults, directly, without self-consciousness, with calm assessment. And then she smiled. It was a child's smile, warm and open and unreserved. The smile of someone who has not yet learned to modulate warmth, who has not yet decided that strangers are to be regarded with caution. There was something lovely about it, and Diane felt herself begin to smile back. The instinctive, helpless response to being smiled at genuinely. And then she saw the teeth. The girl was missing her baby teeth. This was not strange. Children lose them, one by one, across those years. The small gaps that came and went. The new teeth growing in behind. Too large for a while, until the face caught up. Diane had expected adult teeth. The slightly too big, slightly too white new arrivals that made a child's smile look borrowed. What she saw was not that. The teeth that had grown in behind the gaps were not adult teeth. They were not the right shape. They were narrow, very narrow. And they crowded together in a way that was somehow both too many and too few. They came to the gentlest of points, not sharply, not grotesquely, just faintly, the way you might not notice unless you were looking directly. And they were the wrong color. Not white. Not even the ivory of new enamel. Something closer to the color of old wax. Something that had never been meant to be looked at in fluorescent light. The smile held. The girl's eyes did not change. They were dark. A very ordinary, very human dark. And they watched Diane with that same easy attention. The smile simply remained, as though it had always been there, and would remain long after the moment had passed. Diane realized she had stopped walking. She realized she had stopped breathing too, in that particular way you do, when your body has decided something, before your mind has caught up. She made herself inhale, quietly. "Are you here with someone?" she said. Her voice came out level. She was proud of that. The girl's smile shifted, not disappearing, but adjusting, taking on a quality Diane could not immediately name. It was the expression of someone answering a question they found very slightly amusing. "Yes," the girl said. Her voice was ordinary, clear and light and unremarkable. Diane looked down the aisle again. Still empty. Still just the two of them under the long, humming lights. "Where are they?" Diane asked. The girl tilted her head, the same tilt she had used when examining the cereal boxes, as though Diane too were something she was reading, something she was considering before placing into her basket or returning to the shelf. "Close," the girl said. And something about the way she said it, not reassuringly, not the way a child assures a worried adult, but thoughtfully. The way you described the position of something you are tracking made Diane want to look over her own shoulder. She didn't. She kept her eyes on the girl, on that smile, on those teeth, which she was beginning to notice in more detail now, against her will. The way they fitted together with a precision that was almost architectural, each one occupying exactly the space it had been meant to occupy, as though the mouth had been arranged rather than grown. "Do you want me to find someone for you?" Diane said. The girl looked at her for a long moment. Then she looked down at her basket, then back up at Diane. "I have what I need," she said. She said it the way you say something that is true and complete and requires no expansion, not rudely, not coldly, simply as a fact, offered without decoration. And then she turned, unhurriedly, without drama, and walked to the end of the aisle. Diane watched her go. The girl's footsteps made almost no sound on the linoleum. Her basket swung very slightly with each step. The cereal boxes on either side of her stood in their rows, unmoved, indifferent. At the end of the aisle, the girl turned left, toward the back of the shop. And then she was gone. Diane stood still for a moment. The hum of the lights continued. The refrigeration units along the back wall breathed their cold, low breath. Somewhere the stock trolley moved again, that soft, distant rattle, and then went quiet. She looked at the place where the girl had been standing, in front of the cereal section, the lower shelves, the ones at a child's height. One box sat at a slight angle, as though it had been taken down and replaced, not quite correctly. Everything else was undisturbed. Diane reached out and straightened the box. She didn't know why she did this. It simply felt necessary. She stood there a moment longer, basket over her arm, the fluorescent light pressing down on everything with its flat, white certainty. She thought about going to the end of the aisle, looking left, seeing the girl with an adult she hadn't noticed. The two of them heading to the checkout, an ordinary late-night shop. She thought about how simple that would be, how it would explain everything in the way that most things, most of the time, have ordinary explanations. She did not go to the end of the aisle. She finished her shopping instead. Milk, bread, a packet of soup. She moved through the remaining aisles with a focused, deliberate attention, reading every label carefully, making each choice with precision, keeping her eyes on the shelves in front of her. She was aware, at the edges of her attention, of the sounds of the shop, the hum, the breathing of the cold units, the occasional distant movement. She did not hear any footsteps but her own. At the self-checkout, she scanned her items one by one. The screen glowed amber. The machine thanked her in its pleasant recorded voice. She bagged her things, lifted her bags, and walked toward the exit. She passed the greeter's booth, still unmanned. She passed the self-checkout screens, idle and waiting. She pushed through the automatic doors and out into the night, and the cold air met her face, and the wet tarmac spread out before her, still holding the light in its dark mirrors. She walked to her car. She sat in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine. The car park was very quiet. A few cars scattered across it, their windows dark. The lit windows of the shop glowed at her back, that particular fluorescent warmth that was no warmth at all. She thought about the girl's smile. She thought about teeth that were not adult teeth. She thought about the word close and the way it had been said, not as comfort, but as measurement. She started the engine and drove home. She did not look in the rearview mirror more than necessary. But once, near the edge of town, at the long, straight stretch of road that passed the back of the retail park, the loading bays, the dark service road, the high wire fence, she thought she saw something between the parked lorries. A small shape, still, watching the road. She kept her eyes forward. She turned the radio on. Something ordinary. The quiet voice of a late-night presenter, talking about nothing in particular. She let the voice fill the car, and she drove the rest of the way home without looking sideways, without looking back. She put the milk in the fridge, the bread on the counter, the soup in the cupboard. She went to bed, and if, in the small hours before morning, she found herself lying awake and listening to the sounds of the house, the familiar creaks and settlings, the particular silence of a building at rest, she did not examine too closely what she was listening for. She only knew that she was very glad the doors were locked, and that the child, wherever she was, had said she had everything she needed. Thank you for listening to Stillwater Chronicles, where even the brightest lights cannot reach every shadow. If this stillness stayed with you, if the hum of those fluorescent lights settled somewhere just beneath the surface, then let it remain a little while longer. Some things, after all, are simply waiting for the right aisle to stand in. Rest now, and don't look too closely at the dark between the shelves.